Hello, and thank you all for attending today NutriGrocer's Nutrition Education presentation. I am very pleased to introduce Wendi Michelle. Wendi is a holistic health coach and nutrition specialist. She is also an author. Please welcome Wendi Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to present to you one of my favorite topics, which is how to be an optimized version of you. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So the title of this particular presentation is How to Achieve Optimal Energy, Motivation, and Mood. And I think that we all can use a little bit more of each of those things. I like to challenge what is human potential. So whenever I cover topics like this, I like to call our human potential presentations. This is something that gets people to think about what actually is the potential. How good could they feel? How much energy could they have? So we're going to kind of cover a couple of those topics and how we actually can get to those optimal levels. So my first question is, and this is something for you to kind of contemplate a bit, is how are you? And these are some of the standard answers that you hear all the time. I'm fine, I'm okay, tired, busy. Sometimes we'll even get like, oh, I'm good. And we really know when they say that they don't necessarily mean it. And I'm sure that we've all done that ourselves. So one of the things to contemplate is, what is your inner voice actually say? What does your inner voice, the unfiltered answer to that question, when you think, how are you? Is it, I'm amazing, or do you more fall in line with one of these other responses that are more typical here? And if that's the case, even okay is probably better than busy, I suppose, or tired, but is that really the norm? Is that what we're hoping to accomplish? I actually feel like we should be, or we should aspire to be more than okay. That okay is maybe the bottom of the totem pole of what it is that we can feel. So what is the potential for the norm? What actually could we feel? What if the norm is having more energy than we ever thought was possible? What if it wasn't just about surviving, getting through the day, but thriving, where you really feel good, you're excited about what you're going to do, when you have motivation and results? What about joy and excitement and just overall peace? Are those elements of your life? I really feel like these are the things that collectively equate to health. So when people talk about getting healthy, to me, these are the things that matter the most, more so than some of the other things that get focused on just because of the way that society and culture has shaped them. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So if we're going to be trying to accomplish optimal health, what would the approach be? Well, I really do believe, and I have had a lot of experience with people. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I really believe that we are created to be amazing. And over this time, in working with people, I've developed a system in which I approach it in 3 different ways. So one is through ancient wisdom. We've actually learned a lot as we've evolved. Obviously, we're here to talk about it. So it would be silly for us to discount what we've learned from our ancestors and what they knew before there was microscopes and science and labs and other ways to detect things. They had like an inner wisdom. They had a knowledge that we shouldn't ignore. We also have a lot of emerging science. So we have discoveries happening minute to minute, really. And that's very exciting. And then we also have advanced technology. So we have discoveries, inventions, and innovations that actually help our bodies, our biology work more effectively, or really help support the systems of our body through technology. So a lot of times when people are working on becoming healthier, they'll pick one of these approaches, or they're very, very good at ancient medicine or ancient health, but maybe not as well versed in emerging science and advanced technology. So what we're going to talk about today, I'm actually going to cover all of those things and show how it's the synergy of all of it that actually gives us an opportunity to, to test our own individual personal potential. I really do believe that when we realign with nature, we can enhance our biology and we can support every system of our body so that it's able to do what it was created to do and then some. I don't really even feel like we've scratched the surface of what true human potential is, and that's very exciting to me because we've always really just been kind of treating symptoms. And speaking of that, I actually want to go back a little bit and just discuss how did, this, well, I'm okay, how did that become the standard? What has happened as we've evolved and we've grown in intelligence and we've learned more things, and we have this science and we have this data to quantify things. How are we only still living around that okay benchmark? So I kind of picked 4 major areas that I could lump most of these things into so that we're not here for hours and hours. But first of all, there's stress, and I don't think that's really surprising to most people. We are on a mental and emotional overload as we've evolved and our lives have gotten busier and we've had access to more things. We've also become overwhelmed. There's an increased amount of fear and anxiety. We're rushing every place because now we have the conveniences of technology. Then there's also this expectation that we're gonna be able to answer the phone at any point in time, or we're gonna be able to be there faster, or we can do more in a day, and we can. It's not necessarily the healthy choice, but just because we can, we do, and then we end up feeling some of the negative effects of that. And then that, of course, is going to affect our sleep, how well we're sleeping at night, knowing what is waiting for us the next morning, or just decompressing in general by the time you lay down. And then just overwhelm and max capacity. We're taking in so much information at such a rapid pace that there is not enough time for our brains to really fully process it, move it into the areas it needs to be in, for us to even really feel fully present, because we're just getting our bearings, so to speak, on a second-to-second basis. The other area that has really been challenged by our evolution and our current lifestyles is our nourishment. And this topic I could speak on forever. Nutrition is one of my specialties, and nourishment is one of the areas that people really go towards, but they go with the mentality of dieting versus nourishment. So what's wrong with our nourishment these days within our lifestyle? Well, a lot of it is wrong. The food is wrong, or it's dirty. And what I mean by dirty food is it's full of toxins and chemicals. And if you're watching this, this is probably something that you're already interested in and probably very well versed on. So we won't spend a ton of time there. But I just want to make sure that I notate these particular areas. There's also the element of too much food, and we'll get into that some as well. Our gut health and the diversity of our microbiome. Our blood sugar levels have such a drastic impact on so many different elements of our life. And that is, of course, affected by how we nourish. And then diet culture, which is just the mindset around that we always need to be dieting, or a change to the choice of food for that day somehow equates to a diet. And it's a little bit, I would say, not so much how nature intended. So we will talk about that as well. Movement is another thing that really prevents us from achieving our full potential, because our current lifestyles are actually very restrictive when it comes to movement. There's a massive lack of movement, oxygen depletion, poor circulation, and because we're not moving, we're mostly inside. So just the internal, the inside environments are really suppressing our ability to thrive as well. And then instant culture, just that instant gratification of everything, because things move so quickly. We're spoon-fed media. We have information overload. We just have so many different things. We're not even challenged anymore. Things are just handed to us. It's an interesting concept, because while there's so many positive things about what we're able to get quickly now, it also challenges our nature. And so these are the main areas that I'm going to cover as we go through this presentation, and not just what they are. We've identified them. Now I'm actually going to talk about what do we do about them. So in a very overall simplified version, this is my chart from moving from okay to awesome. And this is possible for everybody. There's 4 key elements that when they are stacked together will really make that transition much easier and enjoyable. It doesn't need to be sacrificial. It doesn't need to be something that you've got to hurry up and enjoy life because starting tomorrow you have to implement these new lifestyle changes. This should actually be something that is part of the experience of life. Step 1 would be to simplify. Keep things simple. This is something that our society doesn't really do very well because there's so much. There's so many details. There's so many different articles. There's so many different experts. There's just, everybody wants to weigh in on things, and simplifying is a very important strategy for moving that needle from okay to awesome. Aligning, making sure that it aligns with your lifestyle, your budget, your personal belief system. All of those things are very important. And a lot of times when we're presented with some kind of new health program, it doesn't really align with something that can be sustainable for us. And then that ends up being where we kind of fall off, or in a lot of ways, people end up feeling like failures because it didn't work out for them, and it has very little to do with whether or not they tried. It's more about the sustainability of it. And then connect, understand, connect with the information or the program that you choose, or the practices that you implement. Connect with them in the way that they make sense and that you could actually explain to somebody else if you felt like you needed to. Why are you choosing to eat this way? Why do you choose to move this way? Why are you choosing to limit certain toxins or change your shampoo or whatever it is? Knowing the why is very important. It actually reconnects who we are to our, who we are and our personality, our characteristics to our body. And that there is a great disconnect right now between those two things, the who we are and what is good for our body, and then commit to it. And this is one of those words that I like to reframe, because committing sounds like another thing to have to do. It also can set us up for feeling like we didn't accomplish something because we committed to it and then we didn't follow through, which is why it's so important to stay aligned. So if you go in this order of simplify, align, connect, and commit, then by the time you hit commit, it will be easy because you've simplified it. You will already be aligned with it. So you know this is something that you can sustain and actually is loyal to your personal belief system. And it's something that you understand. So you're motivated to do it, not because your neighbor said to do it, but because there's something within it that makes sense to you. So by the time you get to commitment, it doesn't really feel like a commitment anymore. It just feels like kind of part of the family, if that makes sense. So going back to where we had just talked about the 4 different boxes where I outlined the areas of life that get in our way of being optimal. Now we're going to talk about the positive things, or I should say the action steps. So when it comes to our stress or stress management, ideally, in order to be, more peaceful and land in that category of overall emotional wellness, we would want to stress less, obviously. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we can remove or resolve irritants. And that's a nice way of saying people, relationships, careers, situations in life that we have been able to identify, or we have a general awareness around, that when this circumstance comes up, or when this type of thing that I do on a regular basis in my life occurs, I notice that there's some increase in heart rate, or I feel a little anxiety around it. Identifying those things and then establishing a solution for them. It's not going to always be that you just can quit your job, and it's not going to always be that you can, necessarily change. Maybe it's some family relationships. Those things are part of our life experience. So when I say remove or resolve, for the ones that can be removed, awesome. For the ones that need to be resolved, that does take a little bit more work. But again, go back to your intuition. You know how to do that. Just apply a little bit of emotional intelligence and awareness to it, and find out which ways that particular situation is for you and not against you. It's kind of a trick of reframing it. Then manage notifications. So this is something that a lot of people deal with, pretty much everybody I know deals with, which is your phone is going off. There's more emails. You have, you're on social media, you're scrolling, there's likes or there's comments, and then maybe there's comments that are annoying, and maybe there's comments that make you feel really good. And when you don't see comments or likes, you feel kind of deflated. That's actually harmful to your neurotransmitters. Your neurotransmitters are very important messengers, and it's a very delicate system that has been set up specifically in this particular case when it comes to social media, your dopamine. So your dopamine is a reward system. So every time a notification goes off, that means somebody wants to talk to you, or there's been a like on a post or something. And so that's actually, over the course of some time, creating some dopamine deficiency, which of course is going to eventually affect your mood and your motivation. So stop scrolling. Maybe not completely. I know that's a lot for some people, but putting some limitations around that. Create some boundaries for yourself. How long will you scroll? I have a lot of clients who go, if they utilize social media for business or just to check on things, they'll just go in for that one thing that they're looking for, and they'll come right back out, and they won't get caught up in the web of it all. Speak up honestly. I think this one is really important, and this is something that a lot of people have a hard time with. When somebody asks how are you, and you don't really feel fine or okay, what would it look like? Could your response be that is more in alignment with your honest feelings, and what prevents you from speaking that truth? When this could apply to anything, so it doesn't necessarily need to be in the grocery store, how are you? You're obviously not going to unload on whoever it is that happens to ask you that question, but contemplate this. Contemplate the people that are around you, the people who are safe, the people who are for you, the people who really know you. What is it that prevents you from actually speaking your truth and how you feel about something? Or maybe you don't want to go do something, but you say you will, or maybe you don't have time to do it, but you say you will because you don't know how to say no. All of those things actually create an internal resentment. And sometimes it's not directed on other people, because innately you know that you've said it's been your commitment. So there's like mostly a resentment to self, which can occur, create other health issues. And then of course, create boundaries. We talked a little bit about that when it comes to social media, but also boundaries around your personal time. Be faithful to yourself and what your needs are. Identify what your needs are and create those boundaries. And then minimizing stimulants. So caffeine or, any, I say chemically in society, because there's a lot of stimulation going on around us, including in our social media interactions and so on. So minimize those, recognize what those stimulants are, what kind of gets you hyped up. And if you're there for too long, you find yourself kind of like unnerved. And then of course, here's the fun stuff. Talk about how do we optimize peace. One really important way is to reduce your blue light exposure. Blue light is a spectrum that naturally comes, one of the many colors of spectrums that comes from the sun naturally at different times of day. It's highest in the mornings, lowest at night. That's natural. Artificial blue light is the problem. That's the stuff like from your computer screens and your phone and your television that's actually sending a message directly to your retina that it's time to stay. It's time to be awake. It's time to be alert. But the problem is then you don't have those natural rhythms happening when you're constantly looking at blue light, especially artificial blue light. So reduce your blue light exposure. You can do this by maybe creating an end time for all screen time at the end of the day, or getting some blue blocking glasses. And those are actually much cuter now than they were when they first came out. And then add sunlight. Make sure that you're actually getting exposed to real blue light in the morning. It's a really great time to be out and expose your eyes to the sun. That helps with just nature's rhythm. Supplementing melatonin is very powerful, not just for sleep, and a lot of people think melatonin is just for sleep. It is actually very effective on multiple levels. There are some really exciting studies coming out in regards to melatonin in the body and what it facilitates. It's very powerful for the immune system. So I will be sending some resources as well for y'all to check into, where you can read a little bit more on some of these studies for longevity, immune system, and other benefits of melatonin. Your vagus nerve is another area that a lot of people don't talk about much, but it actually is also known as your 10th cranial nerve, and it is like this. Vagus actually is Latin for wandering. So it's like the longest nerve, and it branches off, and it really touches every element of your body, your skin, every organ, every gland, and it works alongside your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. This happens to be I should not opposer, but this works alongside your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. Most people are in fight or flight from the moment they open their eyes until they close them, and then sometimes even after they close their eyes. So making sure that you have healthy vagal tone and you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system on a regular basis is important. And your psoas is actually a little muscle that sits kind of back behind your belly button a little bit. And this actually tightens up when you're in danger. When that relaxes, sends a signal to your brain that you're safe, and you can actually initiate a parasympathetic nervous system approach at that point in time, so you can actually feel like it's time to relax. There's going to be a couple of links as well for those. It's a little bit extra to get into, but I can't talk about peace without talking about those things. Balancing your neurotransmitters, again, making sure that you are eating, nourishing your body properly, so that you're getting the right amino acids to support your neurotransmitters, and then of course eliminating the things that create imbalance. Music and binaural beats are really powerful for creating an atmosphere of peace. Music, obviously, things that make you feel good, the music that settles your spirit. Know what that is, make a playlist and have it ready. And then binaural beats is a really cool way that they are able to utilize music to affect the frequencies of your brain. So it can actually move you in and out of different brain waves. And there's a couple apps that you can utilize for that I love. Neurofeedback and NLP are also, especially if there's any trauma that has been there for a while, that's just seeing kind of like as the base to like accumulative stress. Neurofeedback is incredible technology that helps people. It's really one of the items that I can't say enough about. And then NLP is also very effective as an alternative to working on some of that trauma, and or creating a new level of awareness around the things that are contributing to these stressors. And then lead with love. That's easier said than done, but it is something to add on your list as an intentional element of your day, and to begin and end with peace. In the morning, whatever is necessary for you to do, whether it's not having your phone by your bed or just being faithful to yourself and loyal to commitment, to not look at your phone until you have had a moment to kind of ground yourself. You don't have to get out of bed for this. It can be a prayer, it can be a meditation, it can be really anything that aligns with you, that helps you feel at peace before you get out of bed. And then before you fall asleep, implement the same things. this will set a tone for the day, and it really helps a lot with creating just feedback to your body that all is well. And you can, whatever it is that you do in the morning and the evening, you actually can implement through the day as well, especially if it is just a prayer or a meditation or something to help you recalibrate and rebalance and get back to that space of peace. So this next section is your nourishing. So 2 areas of this, we're actually going to want to detox and re-nourish. So the detox component is removing GMOs, obviously. That's a big one, and a lot of times I think it's overlooked because I think that there is some within different, depends on who you're listening to or where you're reading information, but I'm in the food industry as well. I'm actually in food manufacturing, and I've learned a lot, not just on the holistic nutrition side of things, but as a food manufacturer and understanding just the chemical processing of food. And I think this is one of my top 5 things to help with health, because it has such a profound effect, or I should say a negative effect on your gut health. So removing GMOs as much as possible. Reducing processed foods. So I think most people may correlate that with maybe fast food, or some of the maybe junk food would be like another definition of that. Processed foods, to me, when I say that, means how many steps has it gone through from the time it was natural to the time it landed on your plate. Anything packaged that has any types of additional chemicals added to it, even if it is non-GMO and organic, those things are obviously better choices, especially for convenience. But as much as you can, try to get real close to nature. Line up with just the way that nature made it, cook it at home, and eliminate some of those steps in between, because there's a lot of chemicals and residue that happens in that process. Limiting sugar and artificial sweeteners. This is not probably new news. It's maybe a little bit more difficult, but I cannot tell you how much more energy you'll have once some of that stuff is removed and you're mostly getting natural sugars from fruit versus what's added to these processed foods or snacks. Identifying false hunger. This is something that is always fun for me to talk about, because most people actually are only hungry 10% of the times that they say they feel hungry. There's this massive gap in real hunger and this false hunger. And I usually will tell people to ask themselves this: what are you hungry for? And it's usually not food. There's usually something else, whether maybe you're bored, maybe you're stressed. It could be a multitude of things, but give yourself that opportunity to check in and say, what am I really hungry for? And then once it's actually food, and you know this for certain, then obviously make your choices for how you're going to nourish yourself from there. Limit sensitivities and allergies for your gut health. This is very important as well. We have, because of the processing, because of the toxins in our environment, grown extra sensitive to a lot of foods that would otherwise seem natural and healthy. People will usually say, I don't understand, my diet is so healthy, I don't know why I still feel like this. And when we take a look at it, there is some sensitivities to some of the foods that they were eating that they actually thought were really good for them. So look into that, consider that, and pay attention. Your body knows. It will always tell you when something isn't right. So even if it's a blueberry, I know that sounds crazy, but there may be some sensitivity to either the blueberries that you get or how they've been washed, or or maybe you eat them every day for the last 10 years at some point in time. Just because they're healthy doesn't mean that there's not a potential for sensitivity. And then removing diet programming. This one is top of my list as well. There is a lot of marketing around diets, a lot of opportunity to sell products. And what that's done over time is it's wired us to look at how we're going to eat based on a diet. Like we need a program or something in order to establish what is going to be a good diet. We actually don't. Our bodies, we are so smart. Our bodies are so intelligent. We actually don't need a program. And you know better than anybody, better than any nutritionist, better than any book that you could get. You innately know, I promise it's within you, what foods are good for you and which ones are not. And that really just boils down to which ones are you willing to commit to and which ones are you not willing to give up because you like them too much. But I don't think that talking about what is healthy and what is not healthy is really a conversation that has not been had. I think that's something that a lot of people discuss. And what makes it confusing and what makes it overwhelming is that we're always being thrown the newest, latest, and greatest diet trend versus just looking at things from the aspect of nourishment. So how do we re-nourish? Eat seasonally and interact with your environment. Farmers markets, maybe you even grow your own garden, which I talk about in the next point. Interact with your food. Food, we are not connected to our food anymore. I'm in these factories. I watch food get manufactured, and it's amazing in a way that it actually makes sense of why we're not nourished. We have lost touch with our food. And it's also why when people make something homemade, when you think when you were younger, like what were your favorite things your grandmother made or your neighbors made, it was because they were handling the food, actually touching the food. There is a very powerful connection that happens when people make something or cook something, prepare food for another from a space of love and a desire to nourish them. And then seasonally, that's another thing. Wherever you live has a lot to do with your microbiome is basically a replica of your environment around you. So to create like a healthy, robust, diversified microbiome, you're going to want to eat what's growing around you at that time of year. Even if you can get a watermelon in Montana in January, it's not going to sit right in your gut because it's not really naturally growing within that environment. It's off. So as much as possible, eat seasonally and learn about the environment around you. What is grown seasonally? Proper water is so important. It's like we're made up of like 60 to 70% water, and it's the one thing that most people don't know. When I ask them, well, what does your water filter out? They don't know. It's something. It's very important to know. So spring water is awesome. There are lots of springs around the country that you can actually go collect your own water. And then there's also carbon filtering systems, whether under counter or complete home filtering systems. But if I was going to get bottled water, in a pinch, I always go for glass spring water. Don't pay too much attention to any of the big words that get put on the front of water bottles as far as if it's pH this or those things are more or less. There can be some health benefits to it, but it's mostly just to compete. It's not necessarily a healthier option. Tea, drink bitter melon tea. This helps a lot with your blood sugar levels. I also incorporate cinnamon teas and different like cardamom and some of the other like spicier teas, digestive teas to help with blood sugar and digestion. Applying AMPK and mTOR feeding windows. This you might also have heard of, either intermittent fasting, or you may have heard of restricted feeding. So windows, time frames in which you will eat and time frames in which you will not eat. And those just sound very, I don't know, they just sound restrictive to me. So you have two systems in your body. You have an AMPK and you have they're pathways, an AMPK pathway and an mTOR pathway. And mTOR, that means you're feeding, there's food. So that's like the building, growth. And then there's AMPK, which is a breaking down of and reduce and minimize and wasting, getting rid of waste. You want to have a good balance of those two. And most people are eating all the time. They're eating all day. They're eating every 2 hours because a diet along the line said that was a good idea. But you're not really ever in that AMPK pathway, which is very important for your body having the time and energy sources to go and identify cells that are maybe growing improperly, or senescent cells that are really just need to be destroyed and removed from your body. You have systems to handle all that stuff, but when you're constantly in mTOR, your body doesn't have opportunity to do that. So that's why fasting actually is very healthy for people, because they're in that pathway of breaking things down and detoxing. So depending on if you're male or female, these windows may be different. Women are a little bit more sensitive, considering their blood sugar. So their feeding window might be 10 to 12 hours, whereas men could do maybe 8 to 6. And then where that window sits is based, again, on the sustainability and your personal lifestyle. You can move it around each day as well, depending on what's going on in your life. And that's why I like that approach. It's a little bit easier than denying yourself food until a certain time. Being able to adjust those windows makes it a lot easier and more sustainable. And it just makes sense. It's very much in alignment with the natural rhythms of our body. Focusing on your food when you're eating, so more intuitive eating, actually focus on the chewing, the taste of it, the smell of it, versus watching television or scrolling through your phone. That has a profound impact on how well you are nourished and how well your body digests the food that you're eating. And then if you wanted to supplement, digestive enzymes are awesome. And supplements as needed. There's some things that we can't get from foods, and under those circumstances, supplementation would be warranted. I'm not a huge supplement fan, because I think that I'm a huge food fan, but supplements sometimes are necessary, and under those circumstances, you could supplement as well to renourish, to make sure that you're getting the vitamins that you need. As far as movement is concerned, we sit way too much. So a couple of options for sitting less are going to be removing or replacing your chair, utilizing a different type of chair so that it engages your core while you're there, maybe like a balance ball, or something that's not as comfortable, that almost forces you to sit up straight, or stand at your desk, move, have an option to stand and sit. Just move more than sitting, especially during the workday. Minimizing your slouching, so keeping an awareness about your posture. Minimize comfort. This is an interesting one, because most people are like, this chair isn't comfortable. It's awesome to not be comfortable, because of what it does, it actually forces adjustment. It forces you to readjust, and it also will prevent you from staying there for hours and hours too cozy and not getting up to move. Ditch your indoor structured routines. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times people go to the gym, or they implement some type of workout routine. They have a routine that they've done or that somebody gave them, and that's what they do all the time. Movement is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be invigorating. It's supposed to be something that we look forward to. So if it's something that feels like a chore, I would consider either a different routine, or just ditch the routines altogether and practice an awareness around what part of your body, if you were in the gym and you're like, I need to go lift today. What should I do, shoulders or should I do biceps? Our bodies know. And check your internal messaging. What have you learned, or what has been taught to you that you've always kind of questioned? It didn't really seem natural. And you've kind of felt like you wanted to go in a different direction, but because you read it sometime, or it was told to you at some period of your life, it's gotten stuck. And it really prevents you from engaging in different activities. One, for instance, would be, a lot of people will ask me, what's the best cardio to do? And a lot of people get very stuck because they've heard this cardiovascular workout burns more calories than this one. The best cardiovascular work to do is what you love to do. That is always going to be my number one answer. So what are some of the things that you've been taught that prevent you from experiencing other things, or actually enjoying movement and committing to it and sticking with it? And moving, here's some ways that we can move more. I call these drip movements on the hour. This is a great way for people who don't have access to a gym, or don't even like going to the gym, or they're just their time does not allow it. Every hour, incorporate some form of movement. Choose between I mean, body weight stuff is awesome because it doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing. So jumping jacks or squats or push-ups or sit-ups, just give yourself every hour 3 to 5 minutes of movement, and just do that every hour. And then accumulatively throughout the day, you will have moved, what would probably be more than what you would do at the gym. And you haven't interrupted any part of your schedule. And you've also gotten the benefits for cognition. So it increases your attention and your focus, increases your circulation, and it boosts your mood. So once an hour to do those things, it's like a win-win situation. Grounding, getting your bare feet on the dirt is very important. There are an abundance of free electrons in the earth, and electrons are so important for our cellular energy. So when we put our bare feet on the ground, we actually absorb those electrons. It's super easy to do and very effective. It's one of the reasons why when people go on vacations, they actually feel so good when they've been out, is because they've had their feet in the ground and been in the sun, of course. So you can do that at any point in time of the day. And then vitamin D, of course, which we talked about earlier with getting sun. And then breathing and break work, making sure you take breaks. Breath work is another option that's really handy to do. Creating hormesis. Hormesis is like little stressors throughout the day, a little bit of discomfort here and there to challenge the body. And then when you do work out, move, play, go do something that you enjoy. It doesn't matter how many calories it burns. If you like hula hooping, hula hoop. If you like rollerblading, rollerblade. Choose your activities based on that. And then go for natural chemicals, the chemicals that you get from the movements. When you feel a little bit anxious or overwhelmed, go for a quick jog. Do some jumping jacks. Boost the chemicals that are actually created internally that help to manage those situations. And then make sure that whatever you're doing, that you sweat. Sweating is important. It's very healthy for the body. And then, of course, stretching is very good for neurotransmitters. Actually increases your serotonin. So stretching is something great to do before bed as well. And then consuming less and evolving more. Ditch delivery. So this is going to help a lot. I know it's convenient, but there is something innately rewarding about going to get something. And as we've evolved, as things have just been handed to us and given to us, it actually diminishes our natural motivation and also our sense of accomplishment. Turn off Siri, research things, find the answers, write it down instead of having it electronically put into your calendar. All of these things, we're wired as humans to handle stuff and to do stuff. And when we keep delegating those things away to the extent in which we feel like life is easier, but then we wonder why we don't feel fulfilled, because we're actually trading a bit of our humanity for some of those modern conveniences. Eliminate the mindless distractions. That's, we've kind of covered that with social media and just the things that we do to try to find peace. That those are actually robbing us of more peace, because it's affecting the chemical balance of our bodies. Limit luxury. Again, not like the most popular thing, but it is something that will help us in being optimized and being accomplishing our greatest potential. When we have been challenged, when we're forced to come up with solutions, when we aren't just cozy all the time, our bodies really thrive when there is a challenge that we can win, which most of the things that we're delegating out, we could win. And then defy your self-limiting beliefs. What are the things that somebody told you at some point in time that you weren't able to do, or you could never do that? Go do it, because you can. Those are things that will actually just create a cycle of self-sabotage. And limit your digital experience. Write, get a pen out, get paper. It's so important. It's something that we're really losing, and it has a lot to do with just how we feel in general. And then evolve more, which is the first one is hunt and gather, which doesn't sound like evolution. But even if you walk to the grocery store, that's what I call it. When I walk to the grocery store, I'm hunting and gathering, because it is how we do it now. But there's still a part of my humanity that loves to go hunt and get something and bring it back and prepare it for people. Do your own research, apply critical thinking, find experts, engage in conversations, especially conversations that you don't agree with at the beginning of it. There is so much involved in having emotionally intelligent discussions so that we can learn and expand, versus what a lot of the algorithms are based on, which is the things that we like. So we're always fed what these algorithms have decided that we like. So when we come up against something that opposes us, we don't really know what to do with that, because it's beneath the surface. It's actually been little by little stripped away from us. So have conversations about things that you don't know about from people who do know. Add mindful adventures. So go on an adventure instead of going for a jog. Maybe just go for a walk around a part of your city or town that you've never seen before and explore. Welcome challenges, welcome things that seem a little bit uncomfortable and out of the norm. That is so invigorating neurochemically, believe it or not. The fear of it or the anxiety of it essentially releases the same chemicals as excitement. The only difference between the two is which one you decide it's going to be. Is it going to be something that's scary, or is it going to be something that's an adventure and exciting? And then learn new skills, especially with your hands, music or building things or creating things. We are created to be creators. So when we're not, and we're just delegating to some digital machine to do things for us, we are losing touch with the things that really make us who we are. And again, write with pen and paper. We already touched on that. So all that to say, and I know that was a lot, and I have a whole list of resources for you that will help you kind of explore these things one at a time, whichever one's popped out that you feel like you could really utilize, or the area that you feel like you'd like to focus on first. The thing to remember is one thing at a time. It is a lot, but just because I know I'm talking to a lot of different people and everybody is different, their needs are going to be different. So I just wanted to make sure to cover all the bases, but pick which one resonates the most with you, and go from there. And I do believe that you were created to be amazing. I have seen too much in my life. I've experienced too much in my life to think anything different. There's so much hope to be had. There is so much life to be lived, and humans are awesome, and we have been made awesome. So just trust your gut, trust nature, and always believe for more, if nothing else. I'm so thankful for your time. I know that this was quite a bit, but thank you for being interested, and thank you for agreeing to the adventure of going down this rabbit hole with me.
Thank you so much, Wendi. That was really great and inspiring information, and for all your positivity, all which we all need now. And thank you everyone for attending today. Please be sure to subscribe to the Natural Grocers channel, and also keep your eye out for more presentations in the upcoming weeks. Thank you again, and good night.